and being on what I like to call the first rung of the ladder of development. In other words, being in a situation of extreme deprivation, without hope, and being in a situation of poverty, yes, but with hope because of the realistic prospect of climbing a ladder of development. It's a life and death gap for 1 billion people now, but it's such a small gap that we who have the means, who have the insight, who have the clear understanding of our situation and of theirs, can do nothing but to help to close that gap and to close it quickly so that everybody on this planet can meet the basic needs, not only for their dignity, but even simply to stay alive, and thereby to have a chance for themselves and especially for their children to become part of our global society. Seems a little bit crazy, perhaps. Could we really end extreme poverty? Isn't this a situation of desperation around the planet? Isn't it a situation of the rich getting rich and the poor getting poorer? And so aren't we simply on a path of unremitting crisis? Or isn't it the case, as some people ask me, that we have our own poor to look after, Professor Sachs, so how can we, even with the absolute realities of the crisis in our own country, how could we hope to address problems halfway around the world when we see how hard it is to accomplish anything? Wouldn't, despite our big and good intentions, wouldn't we just be throwing money down the drain, as it were? Wouldn't we just be, in the end, dashed once again on the shoals of idealism, but irresponsible idealism, because nothing really can be done? I think the answer, fortunately, to both of those questions is surely no. There is no sense at all in which we should for a moment pit our poor against the world's poor, in which we should think that we have to choose between addressing those in real need in our society and addressing those with the life and death needs abroad. The basic economic arithmetic is clear. Both of those challenges can be addressed and indeed need to be addressed. They are both real challenges, but they're both well within our means. There is no excuse in our own society for 46 million people to be without health insurance, for people to be living in the kind of vulnerability in the richest society in history. There's no excuse for that except poor choices at a political level, not understanding what we could be doing to ameliorate our own conditions. But none of that very real issue in any way diminishes our capacity to address the even graver crisis abroad. Graver in terms of the extraordinary extent of poverty, almost unimaginable by us in the United States. But at the same time, poverty with real solutions. Here's why I'm so optimistic. The fact of the matter is that the world, fortunately, is not simply a case of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Economic development, which means the improvement of the material conditions on the planet, is a reality for a significant part of the world. Most notably in Asia, where, as you probably are aware, about 60% of the world's population lives. And just two of the countries in the world, China and India, are two most populous countries, which between the two have almost 40% of the world's population. Think of it, it's amazing. But almost 40% of the world's population in just those two countries are experiencing a measurable and dramatic rate of economic progress, really not seen on the planet in earlier generations. What happened in essence is that the gap between the knowledge and capacity of technology and the desperate poverty became so great that when India and China and many other countries in Asia became sufficiently stable, sufficiently well-governed, sufficiently interconnected in the global economy, so that they could begin to absorb those improved technologies, make use of them, indeed gain millions of jobs producing appliances or answering the calls in call waiting centers and so on, becoming adept in the new information technologies as India has become a leader. As soon as that happened within the last generation, the ability to begin to narrow that phenomenal gap in technology was so powerful that suddenly you found in 3 billion, population of 3 billion people in Asia, a powerful updraft that began to carry people out of extreme poverty. The beginnings of it were really about 40 years ago now, when a continent that had known seemingly endless cycles of famine and deep hunger enjoyed the first literal fruits of modern agronomy, what became called the Green Revolution, a move to high-yield crop varieties heavily promoted by the United States, one of our finest moments, when the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation and the U.S. government teamed up to make high-yield crop varieties, especially wheat and rice, available to impoverished, even dying smallholder farmers in India and in China and elsewhere. Norman Borlaug, one of our country's greatest scientists in the 20th century, still a wonderful force today at age 92 or 93, went to India in the mid-1960s and carried this technology, won the Nobel Prize for it in the 1970s, and helped millions upon millions of farmers to start the climb out of extreme poverty by enabling them to double or triple their crop yields. So instead of growing 1 ton of wheat for a hectare of farmland, a hectare is about 2.5 acres, they were able to grow 2.5 or 3 tons per hectare by using better seeds, better fertilizer. Modern science promoted life-saving technologies, new vaccinations, the spread of immunization, the eradication of smallpox, oral rehydration solutions for children who otherwise would have died of diarrheal disease, malaria control with chloroquine, very inexpensive medicine, and what is safe use of otherwise a pesticide with a very bad name, DDT, but when sprayed inside huts, protected people safely and environmentally safely against malaria. So by the 60s and 70s, already a large part of Asia was breaking out of poverty. By the 80s, the advent of modern communications, improved shipping, improved transport, what came to be the containerization revolution, to carry goods in international trade through containers, connected Asia and the United States markets, connected Asia and European markets, and started to create an economic boom